Have you ever had one of those days when you start working on your project one day before the deadline? Actually, let me rephrase that. How many times have you worked on something one day before the deadline? Sadly, a lot of us are way too familiar with this situation, and most of us promise ourselves to never let this happen again. But if you are anything like me, it usually ends up not going your way. Funny enough, all of us carry the most complex structure in a known universe on our shoulders, yet it can be easily rendered useless if you give us a phone with internet access and some free time. So let's figure out why and how we procrastinate, and also how we can fix this. First of all, let's see what's happening in our brains when we consciously or unconsciously decide to procrastinate. You see, we have this part of our brain called the prefrontal cortex. It is essentially the part of our brain that makes us humans so different from other animals. Think of it as the executive of the brain. A smart, calm, and calculating individual. Thanks to it, we're able to memorize what we need, plan for the future, express our personality, and so on. And the other part of the brain that is important to us right now is the limbic system. Now, unlike the sophisticated prefrontal cortex, this one is, let's say, less sophisticated. Think of it as a small monkey that only cares about getting some snack and some easy dopamine. However, since the limbic system is evolutionary much older than the prefrontal cortex, it is also a lot more powerful. So instead of a small monkey, think of it as an aggressive, jacked chimpanzee that demands you to keep watching that one last short. But let's not completely demonize the limbic system. Sure, it's the main reason we aren't as productive as we'd like to be, but it's actually doing its absolute best to give you your best life possible. You see, our world has changed way faster than our brains have. Evolution takes millions of years, meanwhile in just a few 10,000 of years, we went from being a hunter-gatherers to having TikTok, Uber Eats, and Netflix. Nowadays, thanks to our technology, a lot of problems like hunger, boredom, and threats of predators have become non-existent. But your limbic system is not aware of that, so it still wants to get all that easy dopamine while it's still available. Just picture this. If you found an infinite gold generator, you wouldn't just fill a single bucket of gold and think, okay, I'm good. Chances are you would gather as much as you can carry and then later return for more. That's exactly how our limbic system sees all that easy dopamine around us. And let's not forget that procrastination is not entirely about how our brain is made. There is a lot of psychological aspect to it as well. For example, we can procrastinate because we're too afraid to fail, we're too afraid that we might perform poorly, or you might even decide that you will start your project after you clean your room. But after cleaning, you say that now you deserve a break, and that turns into a 3-hour doom scroll. But fortunately, this situation is not entirely hopeless, since there are a lot of ways to fight this rudimentary trait called procrastination. You see, our brain isn't locked in one place. It has this incredibly useful ability called neuroplasticity, meaning it can literally rewire itself. Based on what we consistently do, different parts of our brain can shrink or grow. That's how we learn, adapt, and get better at literally anything. Therefore, we can make our prefrontal cortex stronger and the limbic system weaker. There are some short-term solutions which kind of trick your brain into starting your work that you may have heard of. Just starting strategy seems to work for some people, where you just get to your work and start doing the bare minimum, which then turns into a full-fledged session. The other way is saying to yourself, I will just do it for 5 minutes, and if I get bored I can stop. But spoiler alert, you will probably finish your task in just one sitting. The other way is creating a ritual before a productivity session. This can be literally anything. Turning on your favorite music, making a tea or a coffee, opening up all the important documents that you will need, or all of these things combined. For the first time it is going to be hard, but the more you do it, the easier it is going to become to do it again. Breaking down your one big task into much smaller tasks is also very helpful. When you look at your 200-page textbook, it might be, to say the least, very discouraging. But if you break it down to 20-page segments, all of a sudden it starts looking a lot more doable. There are also some long-term solutions like consistently meditating or doing something you don't like. For example, that could be going to the gym or taking a cold shower. But doing those is not absolutely necessary. Do those if you want to. In the end of the day, being productive feels good. But often just starting feels very hard, and it can be very discouraging when you fail. You might even think that you're not a good fit for the thing you want to be successful in. At those moments, remember that your brain is your superpower. Thanks to it, we can learn pretty much anything and accomplish anything we want. If our ancestors managed to survive saber-toothed tigers, the Ice Age, and multiple extinction events, then we together can definitely survive this exam session. If you watched this far, congratulations, you just procrastinated on your work while watching a video about procrastination. See you next time.